Welcome along to Race and Rally UK. This week we're coming to you once again from Knockhill in Scotland. Later on, single-seater action from the FF 1600s. We've got sports and saloons as well, but we begin with the latest 2 rounds of the Scottish XR2 Championship.
And it's the 2 usual very quick drivers on the front row. Scott Fraser alongside Andrew Winchester. Just a tenth of a second between them in qualifying. Second row, Scott Morrison. And this man, Willie Davidson, we go on board with him as the red lights go out and the race starts. As you can see, not great weather conditions this weekend at Knockhill, but these boys will be well used to that, I'm sure. Very close for the lead then as they go into the first corner, side by side between Fraser and Winchester. And we're on board with Dave Colville, and already he loses the car into the gravel trap, and I think he's into the tyres as well, so that's a shame. A poor start for him. You can see it on the inset there. That's Graham Whitehill, who's all of a sudden been smacked by a pile of tyres, and the cars are going all over the place to avoid those tyres, which now sit in the middle of the track. A real strange scenario that was. Those tyres came out of nowhere and thumped Whitehill right in the driver's door. I think he's okay because he has driven away from the scene, but with those tyres right in the middle of the track, I can't think they will continue anymore, and indeed the red flags will come out. So a rather action-packed start here. Let's have another look at it.
Yeah, cars making their way safely through that curve, so it would seem. That's the number 4 car, Stuart Scott, but there goes Dave Colville. He goes round, just losing it on the wet track, and he backs into the tyre wall, not particularly hard though. Now we're on board with one of the other cars. It's Graham White, who you can see Willie Davidson, that is, losing it on the right hand side of the circuit. He comes back across, and then I think there he hits those tyres. Those tyres effectively act like a cue ball in snooker. They go into the side of Graham Whitehill's car, and Whitehill is forced into a spin, and then with those tyres in the middle of the track, chaos reigns really. Look, you can see how those tyres just whacked Graham Whitehill into the gravel. It was Scott Morrison who came to a standstill behind them. It was Stuart Scott in the number 4 car that spun round, faced the wrong way, then he was broadside across the track. Very lucky, I think, that more cars weren't caught up in a more serious way, and that everyone did just about make it safely through. We did lose Dave Colville, though. We have got damage to Graham Whitehill's car as well, and I think Willie Davidson, who started all of that off, he also has damage to his car as the number 32 car of Dave Colville sits in the gravel trap, and there is the number 3 car of Peter Cruikshank. Now he started 6th on the grid, one of the front runners in the championship. So the car's on the grid for the restart of this race. Then we've seen Charlie Cope pushed back to pit lane. Peter Cruikshank isn't going to take the restart. That's bad news for his championship hopes as the red lights go out. We're back and away for an 8-lap restart in this Scottish XR2 Championship race. Scott Morrison there on pole position. You can see the turquoise car of Willie Davidson has made the restart despite that damage on the front of his car. Graham Whitehill, he's already passed Davidson. He's trying to make another couple of places as well to go past Andrew Winchester and Scott Morrison too. I think he might have made it as they go round the right-hander, avoiding that pile of tyres. This time on problems there. It's Scott Morrison that's turned around, and look at that dirt that's thrown 20 or 30 yards onto the circuit. That's quite impressive, isn't it? Scott Morrison's going to rejoin the circuit. He's 2/3 of the way down the field though as he comes back on, doing battle with the number 9 car there of Derek McDougall. Now we go on board with Willie Davidson. He's in 4th position, I think, with Graham White, who you can see there second. Third is Andrew Winchester. Along the railway straight they now go, up towards the rear radio hairpin for the first time then. Wipers working absolutely overtime in these very grim conditions here at Knockhill this weekend. It seems to have been this way for most of the Scottish motor racing season so far. Surely it must improve at some point. There is Willie Davidson in 4th place. Then it looks like possibly Stuart Scott is that in 5th place. Looking down the order, lots of side-by-side action there. Scott Morrison trying to come back through the field, but he spun round again for the 2nd time in a lap. Scott Morrison is the big loser. That was the number 14 car, this time of Ian Fraser, that was doing the tipping around. But Scott Morrison, well, he should give up now really, shouldn't he? He's not having much luck so far today.
Looks like he has given up. He's driven all the way across into the grass there on the right hand side. I think he's forgotten where the track is. Anyway, on board we go with Graham Whitehill, and he's completely lost the car this time as well, soaring away at the wheel, trying to keep it pointing in the right direction. He's in 2nd place, bear in mind, but very shortly he might lose that to Andrew Winchester. There's the 27 car of Whitehill, just behind him the number 2 car of Andrew Winchester. Now on board with Willie Davidson, so we've got 2 on-board cars in the top 4. A car off on the inset picture, that is number 74 Stuart Elkin. It looks like he's gone off in the Seat curve sort of area, but Willie Davidson fighting now with 2 cars in front of him. The first of them is Whitehill, the second of them is Winchester, and it's all very, very even for 2nd place in the race at the moment. And this is all playing in the hands, of course, to race leader Scott Fraser, who looks like he's already through the hairpin.
Indeed he is, and now Winchester's gone through into second place and trying to take fourth place away from Willie Davidson is the number 32 car, and that is Dave Colville. Well, didn't he end the first start of this race in the gravel trap? So a good recovery drive from Dave Colville. We go on board with him now as we see 2 cars ahead of him doing battle. Windscreen wipers on absolute overdrive there as they head down to the circuit curves. It's Winchester getting away now from Graham Whitehill, then it's Willie Davidson, then it's the next car up of Dave Colville. Another car joining onto the back of that group as well is possibly Colin McKinnon. Back on board we go with Davidson now, turning his way through the right-hander at the Scotsman, up towards Butchers they then go, and then they'll sweep through the left-hander uphill towards this right-hander at the John R. Weir chicane, and that brings them back out onto the back straight, if you like. We go back on board with Graham Whitehill, always good value as we saw in the last meeting, and he's proved the same so far this time round. He's very sideways going into Carlib corner. He manages to hold it, but can he keep hold of third position as well? He's got 2-3 cars right behind him, and as they go up to the hairpin, he may well find that he's absolutely swamped. He must have lost momentum going up the straight into the right-hander now, under braking for that corner. For the moment, I think he's held on to third position with Andrew Winchester up ahead, but he spins, or a half spin at least there for Whitehill, but miraculously he's still holding on to third place, Johnny.
I can't think that Graham enjoys this car handling like this. It's so oversteery. He seems just to be able to control it, but every corner he's having to wrestle with that steering wheel just to keep the car on the track. This is allowing Andrew Winchester to disappear into second place, almost side by side there between the Davidson car and car 32 on the outside, which is Dave Colville. So that little duet now closing in on Graham Whitehill. Third, fourth and fifth positions, not too far away as well is car 5, that's Colin McKinnon. So this could well be a 4-car train fairly shortly for third position. There's Winchester in the foreground of the shot, just disappearing in fact. He's in second place as the 2 white cars, Graham Whitehill and Dave Colville, battle over third and fourth positions. Onto the railway straight once again, down through the left kink and on towards the hairpin, and Colville has definitely got a run this time on Whitehill. Diving to the left, diving to the right. Will he take the inside line? He's certainly going to try. Out-braking into the hairpin, and he's certainly up alongside and made that place stick. Good move that from Dave Colville into third place, and Graham Whitehill starting to ease down the order. I'll see whether this ill-handling car can stay in the top 4 for much longer.
Yeah, we're back on board with him now. It's Dave Colville then that's now ahead of us, cresting the hill there on the start and finish straight. Down under the Clydesdale Bank Bridge they go towards St Kilda once more into the right-hander. Willie Davidson is playing the waiting game. A lot of curb being taken there by Graham Whitehill. Not sure how well advised that is. The curbs will be very, very slippery in these conditions. We've seen at some parts of the circuit drivers creating a bit of a splash as they have used the curbs on the outside of the circuit as the water's puddled up at the bottom of the hill. Just there, for example, coming out of the John R. Weir chicane. For the moment, though, those 3 cars running in the same order. It looks like Colin McKinnon is still there in what is 6th position, but he's dropped off the back of that group. He was a bit close for a lap or so ago. Back on board with Whitehill. He's got Dave Colville ahead, still very much in his sights as they head back along what I think is the straight, but it's hard to tell with the spray so bad here today, and it's not going to be much of a view there for Graham Whitehill. Or is it for Willie Davidson right behind him? Through the right-hander at rear radio hairpin they go. Out of it they go in good order, and no changes there in the positions as they go back to start another lap. Absolutely,
Willie Davidson trying desperately to hang on to these 2 cars, but you can't help but think that he might be dropping back a little bit. Visibility not great, as you can see. The windscreen wipers doing their best, but the main problem, it looks like, is the windscreen steaming up. You can still see that damage on the front left corner of Davidson's car. The scars left from the earlier effort to get this race started, and then of course the red flags came out. This time Whitehill is very wide indeed, and all the back end's gone completely. He's soaring to the left and to the right. Surely he can't hold it. Oh, he's going to go left up over the John R. Weir chicane, left of the tyres, and he can just about rejoin, but he's lost a couple of places there. That's McKinnon going through. Colin McKinnon sees his chance and slots up a place, but Whitehill's rejoined. He's brave enough to try and carry on for some more. Through Carlube he goes. This time he's kept the car reasonably in good shape here.
Got the distinct impression he wasn't very happy with that. Onto the railway straight we go with Graham Whitehill once more, but as you say, he has lost several places. I think now he's down in 6th position. Colin McKinnon having gone through into 5th place. There he is. You can recognise him from the big dent in his door. That was from that tyre stack that assaulted him from the right hand side on the first start of this race, and it's incredible how much damage that can do to the car, and it's a good thing that that tyre stack didn't get dislodged in a Formula Ford race or something like that, because the damage to car and driver might have been much more serious. Looking further back, that's the battle between Stuart Scott and number 14 Ian Fraser. They're battling over 7th and 8th position, not much to choose between those. Ian Fraser, brother of Scott leading the race, of course, and the reigning champion. And there is Stuart Scott in the number 4 car. He, as we've said, is in 7th position. Scott Fraser, who is leading the championship coming into this round, from the man who's going to finish in 2nd place in this race. That's Andrew Winchester. So this is going to do his championship no harm at all. He won the championship in 2006, and he is keeping up the momentum to do the same in 2007. Checker flag goes out for Scott Fraser to take the win. Andrew Winchester it is in 2nd place. Up across the line in 3rd place in the end comes Dave Colville. So confirmation of those results then. It was a win for Scott Fraser. He won by nearly 3.5 seconds from Winchester. Dave Colville another 5 seconds back.
So now time for the second race of the day for the Scottish XR2 Championship. A very similar front row, in fact exactly the same. Scott Fraser will be alongside Andrew Winchester. The grid for this race taken from the results of the first, so Dave Colville will line up in 3rd spot alongside Willie Davidson, and Colin McKillen will be alongside Graham Whitehill and his rather erratic driving style. Stuart Scott comes next alongside Ian Fraser, but a man to watch towards the back of the field is Peter Cruikshank, who didn't make the end of the first race, so it'll be very interesting to see him his way through the order. We wait for the lights then on the Clydesdale Bank Bridge. The flags being waved towards the back of the field, I think, and the final checks being confirmed. So the red lights come on Formula 1 style, and once we get 5 lights they all go out and we'll be underway. And once again we go on board with Willie Davidson from the 2nd row. He gets a good start by the looks of things, possibly getting the jump on Dave Colville and shunting into line there behind Scott Fraser, so he should get a good run into the first corners at Sayat, but it'll be Fraser that gets the jump on Winchester going into the left-hander at the Sayat curves. So pretty much as you were from race 1 initially. Scott Fraser leading in the number 1 car from Andrew Winchester in number 2, but it is Willie Davidson who's moved into 3rd place early doors.
Yep, certainly has. Making their way through the chicane now. Fraser, Winchester, Davidson, that's the order. We'll see in a moment where everyone else is shaken out. Looks like possibly that's the 32 car of Dave Colville into 4th position, then Graham Whitehill in 5th place at the moment. A little bit of a twitch on there for the race leader Scott Fraser, I thought, as he went through car loop corner. That's given Winchester the chance. He certainly scented a mistake there. Winchester trying to get alongside Scott Fraser as they go up towards the hairpin. He's got his nose ahead, but he's on the outside line, but I think he's made it through. Yes, he has. So Andrew Winchester capitalising on that mistake there. He goes through to lead. Scott Fraser 2nd, Willie Davidson 3rd. In 4th place it's Dave Colville. In 5th place it's Graham Whitehill. It looks like Colin McKinnon 6th. 7th possibly Scott Morrison was alongside there, the car of Stuart Scott. Scott Morrison trying to come back after a disappointing first race in which he got spun out twice in the first lap of the race. Down towards the curves they come. It's Winchester now beginning to stretch a gap from Scott Fraser.
Yes, he is, but I'm sure Scott Fraser will be well aware of what's happening, and he's certainly got the pace as well to at least match Andrew Winchester's car, so much more to unfold in that, I'm sure. Back on board with Graham Whitehill. Now, we had a rather excitable ride through the first race with Graham, so let's hope for slightly better fortunes for him this time. And we move just a car in front, I think. Dave Colville now on board with him. So it looks like we've actually got 3 on-board cars all in a row, because we have got a camera on Willie Davidson's car as well. There's the leaders going through car loop, very sideways there for Willie Davidson in 3rd position, and that might give Dave Colville a chance now. He looks like he's got a good run going down the railway straight, heading towards the final corner at the Real Radio hairpin. He dives out or into the slipstream, or out of the slipstream to the inside line very early, side by side coming into this hairpin. It's still Winchester with the lead ahead of Fraser. We pan to follow that, but Colville has made that move stick, so Willie Davidson's mistake out of car loop really does cost him. He's gone down to 4th position, on board once again with Graham Whitehill, and if anything Graham's dropping back a little bit now.
Yes, he is. Down go the leaders towards Sayat curves then. It's Winchester from Scott Fraser, and if the result stays like this, then effectively this weekend we'll have done absolutely nothing for the championship. The gap will stay as it was as we came into this weekend. There's number 99, Scott Morrison, the 29-year-old, with a flooring business, trying to take a place away from number 5, Colin McKinnon, and that is the battle for 6th and 7th position at the moment as we follow Winchester through the chicane, which he takes in 3rd gear, just feathering the throttle as he makes his way through the corner. Now it's up to Carloop corner, 3rd gear at this part of the circuit as well. Then it will be on the gas now as they come out of it, up into 4th gear anytime around about now as they go along the railway straight up towards the hairpin, real radio hairpin. Now normally the drivers in dry conditions would brake at the 75 metre board, but in the wet they'll be braking a little bit earlier than that, I should think, as we switch back to see what's going on further behind. Looks like a place has changed there. McKinnon now ahead, I think, of Stuart Scott. Scott Morrison still there in 7th place, so he's not managed to get ahead of either of those drivers, and he's now got a different car ahead of him to try and make his way through. Possibly that was Ian Fraser as well, just behind him in shot. Also I reckon Derek McDougall not too far behind either, as now Scott Morrison tries to make a move on Stuart Scott.
Yeah, this is looking like a better race so far for Scott. He started from the outside of row number 5, so he has made a few places up in the first few laps of this race, following Stuart Scott, as you say, Ian. Back to this battle involving Willie Davidson and Graham Whitehill, because Dave Colville has now opened up a little bit of the gap from the turquoise coloured car, and it's very, very close now for this battle a bit further back. Colin McKinnon heading Stuart Scott and Scott Morrison. They're absolutely nose to tail. It's nose to tail for the lead as well, just disappearing through Carloop corner. They're all very sideways. That's Ian Fraser, and almost hit there by Derek McDougall. McDougall must have been on the anchors so hard to try and avoid the 14 car. And he was going to the left, to the right, to the left, and then finally pitched out to the inside of the track, and fortunately Derek managed to avoid him. But a frightening moment there coming through the chicane at John R. Weir. It's still Winchester though, leading from Scott Fraser, going up towards the start-finish straight to complete another lap.
So just going out of shot are our 2 race leaders then. Andrew Winchester still in the lead of the race with 3 wins to his name so far this season, including 2 in the last meeting here at Knockhill, as we switch our attention to a battle further back. And there, coming through the field, is number 3 Peter Cruikshank, and Peter won the 2nd and 3rd rounds of the championship, one here at Knockhill and one at Cadwell Park as well. He started from 20th position from this race, missed out on taking the restart of race number 1 of this weekend, but he's making his way up the order, and I think now is just about into the top 10, so good work this from Peter Cruikshank from the back of the grid, but it's not really the weekend he was hoping for. He'll be dropping out of title contention. There's the number 10 car as well. That's the driver that didn't make the start earlier on, Charlie Cope. He's also made some good progress too, just behind Peter Cruikshank there. We switch back to the leaders. It's still Winchester ahead of Scott Fraser, from this gap back to Dave Colville in 3rd place.
Just going back to Charlie Cope, he made a good move there by the looks of things up the inside of Stuart Wilson into the first corner. Stuart driving that green XR2. So a good fight going down further down the order. Number 3 Peter Cruikshank working his way through, as we said, to keep an eye out for him. Dave Colville coming through in 3rd position. Willie Davidson, if anything, falling back now into the clutches of Graham Whitehill. And still this battle raging on now between Colin McKinnon, Scott Morrison and Stuart Scott, 2 abreast as they go across the line. And almost 3 abreast here as Stuart Scott tries to find an inside line through Sayat Curves. McKinnon still just about staying ahead of Scott Morrison, but Morrison almost wanting to run side by side through Sayat Curves. That's not terrifically advisable. Let's hope that he tucked back into line before they reach the right-hander at the Scotsman. Winchester still leading the race then. On towards Carloop they go again. Very wet these curves, as you can see, particularly with all this rain that we've been having. And there is Scott Morrison finding those curves very wet indeed. He's spun off, and a big impact there into the tyre wall. Not a lot of damage though on the front end of that car, so they obviously make the tyre walls nice and soft up here in Scotland. And can he get that car up and running again, I wonder? There was a car diving to the left as well. I wonder who that was going off into the gravel. Don't quite see who that was. But there was a car going quite wide coming out of John R. Weir chicane, so it's getting rather treacherous out there as Willie Davidson makes a little bit of a wiggle as well, and that might give a chance for Graham Whitehill to gain a spot. This is for 4th and 5th, remember, and we go on board with Willie Davidson. He's making some strange hand gestures here to some people on the pit wall, I think.
Yes, he was. I think it was Derek McDougall that went off to the left of the circuit coming out of John R. Weir chicane at the same time as Scott Morrison was going off, by the way. But there we go, back on board with Davidson, or back to looking at Willie Davidson at least from our camera at Curves there. And now we watch them round the right-hander at the Scotsman, and through Butchers they will then go up to John R. Ware chicane, and it's Willie Davidson still there in this 5th position.
Back to the lead, and we are side by side for it. Scott Fraser already got the jump on Andrew Winchester, and he deliberately delays the turning point there to make sure Andrew Winchester can't turn in. Coming out of the final corner then at the Real Radio hairpin, we have a new leader because Scott Fraser is back in front. Race 1 winner, and he'll go for the double this weekend perhaps. Across the line they go, but Andrew Winchester hasn't finished yet, and he's now nosing ahead, coming down the hill towards the Seat curves for this lap. Can he cut across the front of Scott Fraser's car? He can indeed, back into the lead. This is a great battle and far from decided just yet.
On the inset we saw Graham Whitehill pulling off. You'd have bet on Graham Whitehill leaving the race by way of an accident, but it looks like he's got engine problems possibly that have caused an end to his race. On board with Dave Colville, he's in 3rd place, so has a grandstand view of this very exciting battle for the lead, although he's now got the focus in his attention on getting the car pointing back in a straight line. He's done it, and he can see up front that Andrew Winchester is leading again from the blue car of Scott Fraser. So the order that has been the case for much of the race has been restored. Winchester back ahead, on course then to take his 4th win of the season. Scott Fraser having picked up a couple during the course of the year so far into the right-hander at Real Radio hairpin. That looks like the 74 car of Stuart Elkin, who went off in the first race, about to be lapped as they make their way up to complete another lap. But Dave Colville now is getting much closer to this leading duo.
Final lap then, into the final corner, and Andrew Winchester takes the right-hander at the Real Radio hairpin and starts his climb up towards the line. And it will be a different winner in the second race. Scott Fraser took the first, and it'll be Andrew Winchester taking the second one. Fraser comes home in second, just ahead of Dave Colville in 3rd place.
Yes, an absolutely fascinating race that one, as ever, from the Scottish XR2 Championship. Coming home in 4th is Colin McKinnon there. It's going to be Willie Davidson just 5th from Stuart Scott, although there's only a few hundredths of a second separating those drivers at the end. So on screen now the results. The championship standings though show Scott Fraser with this 1 point advantage now over Andrew Winchester. In 3rd place is Peter Cruikshank, despite his non-start in race 1, and in race 2 Scott Morrison fails to finish, but he nevertheless holds on to 4th position.